Welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
From culinary gems and even a winery to national historic landmarks, riverfront walks, Motown, you name it, a lot is happening in what Debbie Stone says is dazzling Detroit, Motor City, Michigan. She just came back from there, and she's back here on Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station show to tell us all about how much she got dazzled. She was bedazzled. Bedazzled. Yes, you know. Now, her article is up on nationalparktraveling.com and will be featured in the fall issue of Parks and Travel magazine, because her whole region that she went through in Detroit is also part of Motor City's National Heritage Area, and there's so much to see and do. So again, nationalparktraveling.com is where you can read the story, see her photos, and also Debbie is a regular Big Blend expert contributor. You can go to her page on blendradioandtv.com, her expert page there, or on nationalparktraveling.com. I forgot, we've got that now too.
That's right.
We have a new department on National Park Traveling, so check it out. So welcome back, Debbie. I heard that you're not a fire monkey when you're in Detroit. You're a tiger monkey.
I go with the local team, the Detroit Tigers, of course. But yes, I was in Detroit, and I was really totally dazzled by the city. It is truly a great comeback kid kind of story. There's just so much going on there. It's really worthy of a trip. I think visitors will be very surprised to see all the neat changes that are happening in this city, because I think a lot of people have maybe preconceived images or images based on events and things that happened within the city a number of years ago. And the city is it's coming alive. It is being what I consider reactivated with all sorts of cool things, hip hotels, wonderful culinary scene, great entertainment districts, lots of cool shops. There's a lot of youthful energy because there's these innovative startups, creative startups that are in town and bringing employment there. And so there's a whole new, I think, exciting vibe. And I think the locals, the residents are really, just so proud and thrilled to show off what's happening there.
That's a good sign of the community working with, the businesses. And when you think about tourism, you have to, build your community, and the community has to be happy first. Otherwise, the guest is not going to be happy, And
exactly.
Reading your article, to me, is very exciting. It seems to me when you think about Detroit, which Nancy and I, we have to go. Like we really
have to go everywhere.
I know, but this is like a must. What came to me was it has this unique blend, and I have to use that word, of celebrating its history, like way over the years. I mean, when you look at the architecture, obviously it's, car industry, and then looking at things like having the oldest farmers market, the arts, the sports, and all these parks. It seems like quality of life is at the top for them, and just this energy. I'm excited. The white stripes, I'm like,
yeah.
Hey, now
Absolutely.
Jack White.
Yeah.
I think now Jack White, he's got his thing about baseball from, coming from Detroit.
Probably.
Yeah. He's like creating baseball bats and stuff. He's doing cool stuff. Cool. Yeah.
I think that there's just, and there's a lot of people that, have very strong Detroit, Michigan roots, and there has been so much. This was and is again, I think, a really a very, very exciting place to be. I mean, this was the country's auto industry hub. This was, so much a part of a music scene that has roots there. Sports that are just, amazing for one city, and I think, and then the historical component, and the architectural, and the arts, and so this city has really what I consider all. It has everything you might want in a city, and they have, it's clean, the downtown's clean, it's I felt safe walking around. People were very hospitable. Businesses were very welcoming. And so, I really encourage people to, either take a first look or take a second look at the city if they were there years ago,
And what's this about Jimmy Hoffa's body?
I think there's rumors about, Jimmy Hoffa's body. I know that there was a rumor about him in Chicago, and there was a rumor about him, there's always these rumors that go around about where his body is buried. So, who knows is what I say, who knows?
Maybe he just kind of moves from place to place.
I know, right? I know.
He's a ghost.
So what I wanted to know is, so when you get there, because, this is what's so neat is that you've got these skyscrapers, and then you've got these really, the architecture of very historic, grand estates. I mean, la-di-da. So it kind of blends together, and it looks like it's got gardens and a riverfront walk. In your article, you say that one of the first things to do is go with a city tour, Detroit's excursions. And I want to give everyone a couple websites here. Visit Detroit.com. So as we're chatting, you can have a look at what we're talking about, and also motorcities.org. That's for the National Heritage Area, where basically that's where Debbie was exploring. But when that was the first thing, so you can kind of get an idea of where you're going, because it looks like there's just different neighborhoods to explore.
Yeah, I think, it's a city that has a lot of history, as we were saying. So there are these great neighborhoods, like, there's the more Irish influenced Cork town. There is the Greek town, very old worldly. There's Eastern Market, as you were talking, the site of the country's oldest farmers market. It's also where there's all these really neat murals on the buildings, because there's a project that's called Murals in the Market. And once a year, artists come, and I think that, I don't remember if they're juried to come in or what the deal is with that, but they do come in and they do murals on the building. So you walk around and it's very colorful. And then there's Mexican Town, there's River Town, which, like you were saying, has the river walk, and then there's the downtown corridor. So there's all these different neighborhoods, and you can get a different flavor, whether it is in the food or just, the buildings or the types of communities that live there. So I think that's a wonderful part about the city, is that, there is this diversity there.
I love that.
Is it really windy? I mean, they keep calling it the Windy City.
No, that's Chicago.
Oh.
And she knows, because guess what? Debbie's from Chicago.
I'm from Chicago. It's the Windy City, Lake Michigan. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can tell I've never been out.
We have no clue about the Midwest. We really don't, other than all these wonderful guests that we have, like you, who come on our show and tell us about it. And then, to me, this is what's so interesting. Now, in Milwaukee and Wisconsin, that area, we're doing a lot of music from there lately. And Detroit, and you think about Chicago and how the music came up from the South and up through there, like the blues. I mean, it just shows like the migration of people. And to me, this is one of the coolest things about Detroit is Motown. And you got to go to the museum. You went to Hitsville.
I went to Hitsville, USA, which is home to that museum, and it actually was founded by Esther Gordy Edwards, who is the sister of Berry Gordy, who is, of course, the Motown founder back in 1959. And really, this is one of these pilgrimages that a lot of people make, because if you are or were a fan of Motown music, this is the place. And it is fascinating, because you take this tour and you get to go into Studio A, which is where all these artists like, the Temptations, the Four Tops, Smokey Robinson, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Stevie Wonder, they all came and they all recorded in this studio, and things have been left there since back when they all left that place, and it's all been left kind of the same way it was, and it's fascinating. And there's all sorts of memorabilia. There's these costumes and posters and photos, and And, you really are walking down a memory lane. And it used to be that it operated out of 8 houses on the street. And so this is a historical, it is a historical place. It did get historical recognition. And, everybody, if you know Motown, you know that it was the hope music. It was what I call the dancing in the streets music. And you learn about Berry Gordy, and the funniest story with him is, he was once at one time a professional boxer. He worked, he was in the Army in the Korean War, and then he worked at the Ford Motor Company, and he also wrote music on the side. And one day, I guess he received a royalty check, and it was like for a pathetic amount of like $3 and some cents. And Smokey Robinson, his friend, said, Barry, you might as well go into business for yourself, when it comes down to it, if you're getting these royalty checks for $3. And so he went ahead and started Hitsville, USA, with $800 of borrowed family money, a loan from his family, and then he went on to build his empire. And they said that the artists who came there, they went through one door and came out a polished artist, because they did all these sessions on artist development, whether it was, what's your posture, what's your deportment, your manner, your whole thing. And it was a complete package is what they were producing there.
Wow. It's really, to me, it's fascinating. And I love, again, I'm going to go back to Jack White, because like he's such a fascinating, just creative, crazy dude. And he was a furniture maker. And so he's into that. He's into making furniture.
Really? Wow.
Yes. And when he performs live, he doesn't have a set list. He just gets up there, and you got to think about all the stuff he did, as the White Stripes, and then as the Raconteurs, and now he's just one of these really creative geniuses. And the blues is his thing, Robert Johnson, and he gets up there because he's like, and he makes everybody take their cell phones get taken away. They're not allowed to start playing with, because he goes, as soon as you look at your phone, you're now missing the performance.
Yeah,
you're out of
that's
it.
True.
And so his whole thing is about this interaction with the audience. And so he basically goes with what the audience vibe is and what the audience wants, and plays from there. And then he says the songs change on their own. They just completely change. He's written songs on stage. And so I just think this is so cool to go to a place where, these creative people come from, these creative masterminds. I mean, you've got definitely the car industry, the motor industry. Henry Ford is a fascinating businessman, and there's some wisdom behind some of the things he did that just is incredible. But I want to go back to the White Stripes, because you went to a place that I've always wanted to go, Third Man Records.
Yes, it is. It is a very cool store. I went to some of the what I consider hyper local, made in Detroit kind of places, which are, if you go to a town or city, you want to see those unique shops. And so one of them is Jack White's store, Third Man Records. And it is a very cool place, because it's kind of a melding of a record shop. There's a performance stage. There's a record booth. There's a vinyl record pressing plant. So if you're purchasing one, you can watch, through these viewing windows, you can watch them press your vinyl. There's a novelties area. It's a very cool place, and it's right on a street that also has a very cool shop called Shinola, which people might remember back in having heard of it as shoe polish, which was back then, but I think it was the first half of the 20th century. But it's a defunct company, of course, but the brand name was purchased by Shinola Detroit, and they are just a very cool company with these very luxury watches. They do bicycles, they do leather goods, and their whole thing is focused on bringing jobs and bringing employment back to the city.
See, this is what I think is so neat, is when the community and then industry work together.
Yep.
And I think, again, going back to like Henry Ford, it's so interesting because I've been reading, like they found Napoleon Hill's books. They took the foundation, took them out of the vault. And we've done a couple interviews with the editor, Mitch Horowitz, over the year and the past year. And reading these stories where Napoleon Hill sits down with Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie and gets these interviews, and it's just straight up. They said, they basically knew what's happening today in the economy. They knew that was going to happen. They knew about the crashes. They knew about how people needed more than a bonus check to get excited, to continue doing the same thing, and how to get motivated. And they had this thing that if you did not have the community be part of the industry, it's going to crumble.
Yep.
And you can't do something just for a paycheck. You have to have some kind of personal purpose, and goal. So it's really, when I'm reading your article and looking at all these photos, I'm like, I want to go there because they did some really cool things. Obviously, there's always something different somewhere that people can argue about, but there was this connection that I think initially built Detroit, was that nitty gritty. I don't know, get her done. And if you want to invent something, you can. So many inventors came out of there. There's also jeans. You got to go to Detroit Denim. Hey, you got to go there.
There is Detroit Denim, and so it's also a local company as well. And they, the owner wanted to, expose that myth that it was impossible to create, a jeans business domestically. And then he also wanted to bring, back jobs to the town and diversify the base of manufacturing. There's a lot of cool things coming out of there. And as you walk around the city, it also pays tribute to and monuments to people and to movements in the city, which I think is amazing, because you will find so many of these monuments as you walk around, and it really adds to the I think the real uniqueness of this city. Like Joe Louis, we know he was a legendary boxer, but he has a monument that's dedicated to him, and it's a sculpture, and it is attributing to not only what he did in the ring, but what he did outside of it in regards to racial disparity, Jim Crow laws, and all those kinds of things. And then there is, to me, one of the most incredible monuments was this wonderful one about the Gateway to Freedom, which is about the Underground Railroad. And it's fabulous because, you're right there on the Detroit River, and you look right across and you see that Canadian flag, and you're looking at Windsor, Ontario. And so this monument, this wonderful monument, has this, group of people, and they're all looking that way. And, it really pays tribute to Detroit's role in the Underground Railroad. And I found it fascinating because there's also these signs that also list, like, the kind of system or the network and where were the safe houses. And because Detroit was one of the last stops on the railroad. And actually I found out that its code name on the railroad was Midnight, which was kind of cool. And so, the slaves, they sought refuge in the churches there. There's one historical one, I think it's the Second Baptist. And, because at the time, even if you were a freed slave, you could be kidnapped and returned, under that fugitive act that they had back then. And so they had, bounty hunters that were coming. And even though, Michigan itself slavery was abolished, it didn't matter because these bounty hunters would cross state lines. And so, these slaves were looking at, getting to Canada because Canada had abolished slavery. I think it was back in the early 1830s sometime. So it was fascinating. So that monument was just, I really liked learning about that because I didn't realize Detroit's role there.
I want to say too, I know that there's the Motor Cities National Heritage Area, but the Underground Railroad Network is also almost like a trail that you can follow through the National Park Service as well.
Yes.
I know it's a trail for, in history, people running to freedom. But there is this, there's so much history that just diverges into Detroit. It's amazing. Then there was the one that you also saw was the Spirit of Detroit.
Right, which is it's kind of a figure that has a spear in one hand and a family in the right, and it's become a very, I guess, a famous symbol for Detroit. It's part of the city's identity, as is this labor monument, which is called Transcending, which I have found it very interesting. It's kind of a tribute to the labor movement, and it's this kind of two steel arcs, but at the top, if you can look at the picture, you see that it's a little bit open at the top. There's a break, and that represents the fact that there still needs to be a lot of work that still needs to be done in the movement. And there's quotes and plaques around, attributing to the labor movement. And it's it's quite an impressive monument. So I really enjoyed, because the monuments give you, I think, great historical perspective, and let you know what happened and in this city, and why it's significant. So that, and also the architecture. I think the architecture gives you a historical perspective. There's a lot of 1920 style buildings, and also some mid-century modern type of architecture. But my favorite is definitely the Guardian. It's this unbelievable jewel, this Art Deco jewel that is, I think, it is the coolest. And it is designated a National Historic Landmark. And it's just, the lobby inside is probably, it just blows you away when you walk in. You're like, they say it's impressive, but you don't understand how impressive it is until you walk in there and you're like, oh my.
Wow. I was looking at the photos of that. I'm like, this is, you think about the craftsmanship then, of buildings, and the art and the design, because it goes hand in hand. And the ceilings, it was so colorful, and just all the tile work, and that's really.
It looks like they used to take so much more time when they did things.
Oh,
so we didn't have just
beautiful,
squares.
Yeah, painstaking, I'm sure, and known for, I think I said that it was called the Cathedral of Finance, because it has this kind of church-like feel, and it's very quiet in there because the ceiling has this horsehair on it, this mat that makes it very sound absorbent, so it's very quiet. And our guide said if you listen carefully, you can hear the monks chanting to the gods of money in the Cathedral of Finance.
Oh my gosh, I like that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's interesting too, because some of the other buildings you talk about, the book Cadillac, you say this is a Westin hotel, but so now you've got the car names going in, right?
Yep. You've got Book Cadillac, and then you also have, the One Detroit Center. This is kind of a neo-Gothic. It's got these spires. It's, very noticeable. There's a Renaissance-looking book tower. There's Element Detroit, a hotel that used to be the Metropolitan Building. And then there's the GM Renaissance Center, which is now the world headquarters for GM. And it's this unbelievably huge, impressive building that's got a hotel and restaurants, and then it's got this big interactive showroom with all their cars and race cars and all sorts of things. So, the architecture is something, you could just spend probably days, walking around the city, getting information. They do architectural walking tours, and I think it's a wonderful way to see the city, to get a perspective on the city that oftentimes people just kind of drive by buildings or whatever. They don't understand what the significance of that or what it used to be, and I think that the city is doing a great job of renovating some of these wonderful historic buildings and giving them new life.
That's so important.
Yeah, and
it really is.
You said there's a lot of family people that came in. The family, is it Illich family? Am I saying this right?
Yep.
That really helped towards this. And
there's private investors, I think, are really have been really key. There was two men in particular, a family, the Illich family, and they were owners of they are owners of Little Caesars Pizza, the Detroit Tigers, the hockey team, the Red Wings, and then Dan Gilbert, who is the owner of Quicken Loans, and he also owns the Cleveland Cavaliers. But they have invested in this city, and they have especially the downtown hub, and they really have I think been instrumental in this major redevelopment.
And the sports thing, I know, is a really big deal there, because all these different names you're telling us about, but you say they also have a new stadium, and then the downtown core itself is a sports complex in a way. History, but also sports is being played. A lot of times the stadiums are like on the outside or something. But they're taking it right in the heart of the city.
Yeah, if you're a baseball lover, basketball lover, football lover, or a hockey aficionado, then you're really it's sweet for these sports aficionados, because they have all these. They have four teams, major teams, and it really, supposedly Detroit is the only place in the country where all four professional teams play right there in the downtown core. And that's exciting in itself and brings, people, in, and it's great because it's all, really accessibly located, very accessible for people.
And so when you think about, people coming in for teams, that means a lot of hotel rooms are needed. And lodging wise, what's that like? Is it mostly, chain hotels or inns?
It's actually a lot. Well, what's coming up now are these boutique hotels. There's a lot of them, but there's also brand names that you would find in any city. But what I find really interesting that these more boutique hotels, and especially ones that have had are in historical buildings that they have renovated and have kept true to the authenticity of the history of the building. I stayed in one that I found was wonderful. It used to be the Detroit Fire Department, and now it's called the Detroit Foundation Hotel. And it was the headquarters for the Detroit Fire Department. And it's a 1929 building, and it really has been beautifully renovated. Pictures will show you the red fire doors on the front of the building, and inside they've kept some things, been true to the building. It's a very cool, hip.
I want the pole.
Yeah, the pole. Very hip, vibe. And they have a phenomenal restaurant there called the Apparatus Room, and that's another really fun place. Yeah, the Apparatus Room. Well, it makes sense. That's where they, maybe have kept all their apparatus.
Yeah, you don't take an elevator, you take the pole.
So wait, so the servers, are they dressed up as firemen?
No. They're not. They're not authentic to that point.
Oh, come on now, come on. We want our firemen. This is interesting because I think, and there's always that thing about be careful of the hotel restaurant, but it really is different when you come to something that is something really treasured like this. So the Apparatus Room, somewhere you would recommend people?
Definitely. It's a really, it has a very, very hip bar scene as well with live music and, but the food, there's a chef there, Chef Lentz. I think he's 2 Michelin starred. And so that you can get you can opt for something called the chef's table, which is this phenomenal, multi-course kind of experience where they just, you put your hands in the chef's, you put your palate in the chef's hand, so to speak, and you just, they bring out dish after dish, and you get to try some very creative and innovative dishes. So it's a very cool experience. But and I saw a lot of people, coming in there from locals and people from downtown, and so it's not just people that are staying there that are eating there. It's a place of its own, reputation.
Now the food, I know we've seen, like Anthony Bourdain did a wonderful episode on Detroit, and I was like, wow, look at this food thing. It seemed like during, I'm going to call it like the Detroit Renaissance, really. That chefs turned around and said, no, we're going to go more farm to table. We're going to stick with our quality. We're not running with our tails between our legs. That we're going to make a statement of who we are. And so, what was the food like as a whole?
I think it's impressive, very impressive. They're getting, as I said, these very cool chefs. Some of them were from or are from Detroit, and they've come back to Detroit to bring that food scene alive again. And so there are some amazing restaurants. I ate at 220 Merrill. It's in another historic, the Edison building. It's really a kind of that actually is in Birmingham, right outside of Detroit. But there's all other sorts of restaurants like Park, and it's spelled P-A-R-C, and it's in Campus Martius Park, which is one of the parks that they've really reactivated and actually has its own little beach with sand on it, and they do outdoor concerts there, and it's a really lively, energetic place. But Park is a very, very cool kind of Mediterranean influenced place. And then Lumen is another really cool place, and that's also in a park, Beacon Park, and that has been reactivated, and it's a very, it's got a lot of kind of Belgium style place. And what was so neat about it is when we came, the park, there's people, they put up like foosball tables in the park. You see people that are just, playing. And it's part of the whole thing was to bring people out of the buildings, bring people outside, give them a sense of community, some place to go, some place to interact. And I found that to be really exciting. And they even like put sometimes in front of buildings, they're like, chessboards and couches and things to bring people out of the building.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Do you think that, the success that they're having now is really the private investors as a whole, just these kind of people walking in and saying, let's have seems that everybody has an authenticity or an integrity to what they're doing, whether it's a shop, whether it's jeans, music, food, lodging, that they have brought a very strong sense of originality.
Yeah, and I think there's a real buy-in or a dedication, a motivation to wanting to give the city that new life and give it that wonderful return to a new glory days. And so I think that there are a lot of people who are really focused on doing that, and people have come back, and then there's new innovative people that have come and trying to start up businesses, coming to start up restaurants and stores and shops and businesses. And so I think it's a combination of everything. It's a lot of private investment, but the city is involved because the city has a stake. It's a stakeholder, and the residents are stakeholders, and everybody has some they have commitment to the city, to making it a place that people want to live in, work in, and visit. And so there's, for example, as I was telling you about the chef, but then there's this incredible man that has brought a winery to Detroit, which is
seriously
amazing.
I couldn't believe it, because I know we've done the shows, especially when we started the show, about it was like 11 years ago, and then and through that time, I know Traverse City, Michigan, has distilleries, farm to table, very again, really conscious about their ingredients quality. We had a tea lady that this amazing organic tea where she said, you really have to almost grow your own.
Right.
And so there was these just amazing people in Traverse City, Michigan, that we had ice wine from there and all kinds of, crazy goodness. But I never would have thought in my life that a winery would open up in downtown Detroit. That is the coolest thing.
It is, and it's called Detroit Vineyards, and it's
nice.
The project of co-owner Blake Konaki. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And he was a Detroit boy, and he came back after years of being away and working in vineyards and wineries in Australia and then in California.
Oh,
and he decided that the city itself has a wine making history, and according to him, that Detroit is a good ideal setting for developing, for marketing, for tasting wines, and it is going to be it is the first fully operating winery in Detroit in more than half a century, and it uses grapes from Michigan itself, of course, but then he has piloted this really cool program, and this is talk about wanting to work with the community. He provides the trellising, he provides the the grapevines, the training to locals, to residents who have some vacant land near their house. And after the vines mature, then he purchases the grapes from the residents.
Okay, I'm moving.
That's awesome.
I always wanted my own winery.
Blend wine.
I know. I want to go just for that. See, that is ingenuity and being smart with what you have, and that is to me the best thing, Debbie, for sure. I mean, and then being in Detroit and actually being in the downtown area, it's got to be fantastic, and cool for the locals, the local restaurants and everything to just get his wine. He doesn't have to ship it across country necessarily. People can get it right there.
Yeah, he's starting, I think his first vintage, I think was 2016, I believe. But he, his wines are starting to be carried in some restaurants and wine bars, and he has big plans. They're moving. They had this production facility, which we saw in a garage is where they started, and of course they outgrew it, and so they are moving into this, big facility that was located in a former ice cream factory, and then a portion of it is going to be this public tasting room, and it's wonderful because people can go, they can taste the wines, they can look at the production facility, there can be events there, that weddings and everything can be, and it's right downtown and near the stadiums, and it's going to be a great addition to this hip food and wine scene that they have going there.
This is so exciting.
It is exciting.
And
it's nice to hear something come along like that.
I know. I want to go do like a tourism.
Yeah.
I want to call them. Have them come on our tourism excellence show, because it's all about putting the eye back.
You
in the
need
community.
to.
And I think I'm calling them because I'd love them to come on and explain this so other communities can learn. The one thing I noticed, we always talk about it being Motor City, right? And of course, it's now a National Heritage Area. But I noticed throughout your article, you refer to it as the D. I feel like going, it's the big D.
Yeah, the D. Well, the D, it's Motor City, the D, Motown, it has a lot of different, I think, nicknames, so to speak,
Okay, that's cool. I just wanted to know about that part. So now you also said, okay, so you went on a tour thing, but you said you basically, if we decided to fly in, we can get around easily without having your own car. You can, there's a streetcar. I love streetcars.
Yeah, they're fun.
There's a street, they've got the Q line, they've got the People Mover, which is a light rail system. They've got a bike share rental program called MOGO. They've got buses, they've got zip cars, you can, there's many ways to get around. And then downtown is a very walkable pedestrian, people walk all over, and you can get to a lot of different places, if you like to hoof it. So there's, I think, great options that you don't have to have a car. And, I think, getting a car would be only if you really wanted to get outside of Detroit and go see some of these, other, I say communities or cities or towns that are outside of Detroit. But if you go to Detroit, there's so much going on there. You could spend days just, going to all the different places, taking these tours, going to the museums, and in fact, one of the museums that I went to that I thought was really impressive was the Detroit Institute of the Arts there. And it is, it's really a must. I think it has one of the more impressive art collections, and lots of different genres, and everything from African and Egyptian to indigenous American art, and a lot of some rare pieces, Rembrandt, and then of course there's this self-portrait by Van Gogh that supposedly is the first painting by the artist to enter a public museum in the U.S. And then there's a whole Medici room and Impressionist room, and then there's the Detroit industry murals, which I found fascinating. It's in the inner courtyard. Oh my gosh, Diego Rivera, they're actually frescoes, and they're just you walk into the inner courtyard of the museum, and they're huge, large scale, and they tell this story of the industrial culture of the city. But it's also kind of a cautionary tale about technology and science, and what can happen, the good and sometimes the issues that can happen with technology and science, the issues with working conditions in industry. And it was considered, or he considered them to be, I think, his most successful for work, and they were given a National Historic Landmark status.
That's, I'm glad, because I know that him and I think Diego and Jose Orozco, those two stood up for whatever they believed in. They didn't get scared. They just did it. They really spoke for the people. And I know, the whole thing with industrialization happening in Detroit with, manufacturing cars. There was this huge up, and then there's obviously there's always going to be a negative somewhere. And so there's also all of that history to learn. Is like, what do you do with the labor force? Are you treating them well? And I know that Diego really stood up about what was happening with, in both countries, Mexico and here. But I want to go to that museum. But you did some other really amazing historic sites. You went to like the Edsel and Eleanor Ford house. I mean, that would be really cool because that place and the Meadowbrook Hall that you went to. Oh my gosh, these
Yeah.
estates.
These
Like,
estates, these are, these are
this is insane.
historical, incredible, belonging to automotive aristocracy. Now, Edsel was the son and the only child of Henry Ford and his wife Clara Bryant, and Edsel and his wife, they built this very interesting house that's situated on beautiful Lake St. Clair, and they raised their kids there. And the place was designed to resemble almost like an English Cotswold village cottages, series of cottages complete with, there were stone roofs and there was lead pane windows and vine covered walls. And they liked this style. They of course spent time in England. They really, really were fans of this style, but they also had such an amazing collection of art that came and furniture that came from all over the world. And these incredibly beautiful, almost natural, very natural looking grounds, but they were designed and planned by this famous landscape architect, Jens Jensen. And so even though it looks like it's very natural and organic, they were very, fastidiously and meticulously planned, but they're beautiful. And it's really, it's an interesting tour because you get not only to appreciate the architectural points of the house, but you then also get to hear about the history of this couple and raising their kids kind of out of the limelight and wanting a country home, so to speak.
Oh, that's a real country home.
Like that one, just like it.
Yeah. Hey, just let's go to the little country home, the little one. Just little one.
Weekend.
Yeah. We'll just go out there and have a little, a little tiny picnic under a tiny tree. I'm just kidding, but it is amazing when you think about also that era of what they were creating. And I look at today with all this, technology and tools, and I go, can we go back to making these beautiful,
right,
structures like that? I mean, it just is so beautiful. The Meadowbrook Hall too, that's like another little country home.
I know. Now that that makes the Edsel and Eleanor, makes that house look small in comparison, only because this is one of the top, I think it is the fourth largest historic home in the U.S. and there are 110 rooms. I love the idea about the 39 chimneys and each one's different, and ballroom and Frank Sinatra and the Tommy Dorsey Band performed there, and a beauty parlor, a game room. There's like a there's a 9-hole golf course. There's elevators, and there's even a room devoted to the florist for all the flower arrangements, and all these decorative objects. But it's an interesting family because this is the widow, Matilda Dodge Wilson, the widow to the automobile pioneer John Dodge. We all know Dodge as the automotive company, and her second husband, who was Alfred Wilson. But she was widowed quite young. Her husband, John Dodge, and actually his brother, who were the pioneers in the automobile industry, they died. Both of them died of the Spanish flu. Oh. And so they're widows. They eventually sold the company, but also it was kind of a tragic. It's almost the curse of the Kennedys, almost in terms of she was widowed young. Then their youngest daughter died of complications of from the measles at 5. It was one of these kind of almost ill-fated families in the respect of death coming early, but she and her second husband created this amazingly, I would say, very, very impressive estate that just wows you. And she was famous in her own right, not only being the widow and wife to John Dodge, but she was the first female lieutenant governor of Michigan. She was the first woman to be chairman of the board of a bank, and she received honorary doctorate degrees. And so she was, a woman with, exactly. And so, she's noted for being who she is. In her importance and significance.
I love that because And I think it's so neat to walk through, people like that have made, significant change and been pioneers in something, especially for women, and then walk through their
Right.
home and see what
Mm-hmm.
who they were. One thing I saw a lot of in the photos from all these buildings is stained glass, and I was
Yes.
like, oh, I love stained glass.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just
so many beautiful examples of stained glass, and also what I found was very interesting, these carvings that were done. These, in Alfred's study, it was fascinating because he had this wood paneling that was all around the room, and in it was carved all these details of his life story, and it was just, just the time and the painstaking process to do these things, and also, the kind of innovation to think, okay, I want this to mean something, or to signify something, to tell something, not just to be a pretty face,
Right. That's amazing. It's amazing. And now Birmingham. Now,
Yes.
So this was like an outside, like a neighborhood, or like another. It's like a community of Detroit.
It's a suburb of Detroit. And both Meadowbrook Hall and the Ford House are in, outside of Detroit. Pretty close by, within, less than an hour kind of thing. And Birmingham is, very upscale type of community. We stayed at this very famous hotel called the Townsend Hotel, which has been host to lots of celebrities, presidents, monarchy, royalties, sports stars. It's a really very,
and Debbie
very
the Fire
beautiful.
Monkey.
Yeah.
Don't leave that out.
That's right, absolutely. And host to the fire or the tiger monkey, whichever one you want. And you go to all these beautiful estates, and it's like, so then you go to the towns, and then you have your own kind of luxe overnight, as I said, and it's really such a stylish but really comfortable place. They do high tea there in the afternoon, with all the bells and whistles, and it's beautifully decorated, but it's not stuffy. It's not, you know what I mean? It's just comfortable, cozy, and good restaurant in there as well. And Birmingham itself is this really nice town to go shopping in, and I just kind of strolled around, and I looked at some of the, once again, local stores like Something, which is kind of a SUHM thing, which is a very interesting place for Michigan related goods. And the one place that I really enjoyed a lot was Eli Tea Bar, and he's this interesting guy that opened this tea bar where he wanted to expose people to teas from around the world, and then create some of his own blends. And he is a botanist that's turned tea master.
I love this story.
So it's wonderful talking to him. He had me try cheese tea, which I thought was, okay, what's this? And it's just this wonderful black tea, and it's got this, he makes this like whipped, almost liquid cheesecake type of thing, and then he pours it on top of the tea, and it kind of, soaks it. It was very, very, very good. And just talking to him was very fascinating. He's a really cool guy, and his shop is really, I think, very unique.
I want to go there. I'm so fascinated. I'm like into botany, and don't ask me anything, but I'm really into plants and the history of plants.
Yeah.
And to me, tea is very, very fascinating.
Yes.
And we had the war over it. And I mean, and you think about the war of tea, throw the tea overboard. Well, it wasn't little tea bags. It was these big bricks that looks like hash. Here, not that I know what hash is. No, but it's the same. But it's these big, thick, hashy bricks. And you think about it, it's like, wow. But when you look at the history of tea and where, there's India, and just, even then here comes England and saying, no, you must raise your little pinky when you have that tea. The whole thing is,
the culture of tea is fascinating.
Oh yeah, read the tea leaves.
You got to read the tea leaves.
You must read the tea leaves.
But it's like I told Eli, I said, like going into your shop is like taking a tour around the world with all your different teas, and he's so knowledgeable that it really was like being an armchair traveler of tea, so it was quite a special place. But yeah, Birmingham, I really enjoyed it. I think if you're looking for one of those special overnights in a really special, unique place, I would, urge you, if you're going to go outside of Detroit, that would be a really nice place to spend a night or two and enjoy the shops, the hotels, the restaurants, all that scene there.
Speaking of plants, the Stem and Stone place
Yes.
that you went to, I want to go there too because you can create your own terrarium.
Yes.
That's it. I'm in.
How much fun is that?
Yeah, it's very cool, and you can pick out this, that, and the other, and they've got the containers, and they've got the wonderful, great cacti sampling as well, and just I liked going in there because I do enjoy. I also like plants and botany. I don't know pretty much anything about it, but I do enjoy it.
I know, that's what I mean. It's like, oh, these are cool, but
it's so unique.
I know it's unique, and it's just like. I want to go to, there's George Washington Carver, who's a botanist.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to go to that monument because, like, he's fascinating. Like, botanists to me are like these crazy, cool scientists. They're like biologists.
Yep.
But like plants, and they have, things. They microscopy things and stuff, and that's cool. No, but I love microscopes. Those are cool, man. That's one of the best. I think the best toy I ever had was a microscope. That was the coolest thing.
I think it's a very interesting area of expertise, and to find somebody who's very skilled and adept in it, who wants to use his skills and transfer them into this whole tea world. He wanted to continue his research into plant biology, but he also wanted to find a way to engage and work with and interact with the public. And so I give him a lot of props for doing this, because I think it's a great use of his skills,
And everyone, I just want to say, allinbirmingham.com is the website to go for Birmingham, not Alabama, Birmingham in Detroit,
right.
Michigan. So allinbirmingham.com. And now I know because you went to Birmingham, Alabama, and covered that too.
That's right.
At the end, I was talking about this. I was thinking, like how history, the past, and the future, and present is like really strong. But I think after our conversation and reading the article, I actually think, Nancy, this is really a story of people. These strong people,
especially having the commitment to bring the city back to something that we now want to visit. You hear about it because years ago people were a little bit, is it going to be safe? You know?
Yes.
Now it's like, it sounds like
vibrant.
If you don't go, you're missing out.
Yeah, it sounds really vibrant. And these people's stories of doing something unique, and that's why I think Eli is so cool with the tea. It just makes you change your mindset a lot. Everyone, again, the other websites, visit Detroit.com, allinbirmingham.com, and of course also for Motor City Heritage area, because they have like a list as well, just like visit Detroit.com. Go to motorcities.org. Debbie, Fire Monkey, where are you swinging to next?
I am sticking with a Midwest theme this summer. So I'm headed to Ohio. I'm going to Cleveland, and then Cleveland and beyond. So I'm going to Lake Erie. I'm going to Canton. I'm going to a couple of the areas outside of Cleveland, but also as well the city. So I'm very excited. I have never been to Cleveland, and I am also excited to see what's happening there. Also excited to see the rock and roll. And
dude, seriously.
Yep. So it'll be. I think it'll be just as equally as exciting as Detroit, and I'm very enthusiastic about open to it all, and we'll be giving you a report when I return.
We can't wait. Fire Monkey. This is awesome. This story is just so. It just makes me so giddy happy about this. It's just such a success story. It is. I can't wait to get there, and we'll get there at some point. Everybody, again, the article's up on nationalparktraveling.com. You'll also see Debbie in our expert department under Parks and Travel magazine. And you can also read her stories in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. Just go to blendradioandtv.com. You'll see her in our expert department there. And again, this will be in the fall issue of Parks and Travel magazine. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We love everyone coming here and listening to Big Blend Radio, especially hearing stories, the success story of Detroit. We air Sunday through Friday. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. And from there, you'll have links to all our outlets so you can listen as shows go live, or you can listen anytime on demand from anywhere. Blog Talk Radio, our main station, to Spreaker, to YouTube, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player.fm, iHeartRadio, Spotify. It's happening. So check it out. And we want to thank you, Debbie. We got a song for you.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm excited about this. So one of our most favorite bands, and I think the most, John Roniger and Johnny Mastro and the Mama's Boys, Wally Lauder. I'm just thinking there's some key people, but Johnny Mastro is someone we've known since we started the magazine years ago.
Yep.
Johnny Mastro and the Mama's Boys, named after Mama, who had a Babe and Ricky's in LA, downtown LA, and it's an old blues club. And so their band is now in New Orleans, which, I think about Detroit and New Orleans, two renaissances, right? Two
Correct.
Success stories, chefs, musicians, artists, they're all connected in this. And anyway, he went up with Johnny Mastro and the Mama's Boys, went to Detroit back in 2009, and they recorded an album called Beautiful Chaos. And it also has like a smaller EP off of this album called Captain Trappist, because, hey, who doesn't like a good beer? But anyway, beer. But this is Beautiful Chaos. The song is called, we're going to do this, Freshly Squeezed. Kool-Aid is what it is. And so I was thinking about all the food and the wine and all that good stuff, tea that you had.
Perfect.
So we're gonna play Freshly Squeezed, and again off the Beautiful Chaos album. It was recorded at Ghetto Records in Detroit with Jim Diamond producing, legendary Jim Diamond, and it was a wild session apparently. And you can check it out. It came out on Ripcat in 2009, and you can keep up with Johnny. Go to johnnymastro.com. But here it is, Freshly Squeezed. And if you're Debbie, you're going to freshly squeeze it and then swing on to Cleveland. Thanks so much for joining us, Debbie.
Thank you so much for having me. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Here it is. Freshly Squeeze It.